And that's Colin Harper, who's the Managing Director of StoreCheck. He's going to explain how feasible it is that whether you can buy loyalty or whether you should earn it. I think we probably all think we know the answer to that, but it'll be interesting to hear your comments, and thanks for your patience in running a bit late.
Afternoon. I've got the graveyard shift. Thank you for those who stayed. For those of you staying for the drinks, I'll keep this relatively short. I haven't had a training on this, but I think probably press that way. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to try, there's 40 slides here. Don't all gasp, because I'm actually, this is a fairly carefully reasoned presentation I've got. When you get it, if you're that interested, you'll find every slide builds to give you a picture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skim over it, because I don't want you to be tired. I'd like you to understand it. And of course, the drinks are calling. So what I want to do is I want to challenge some of the assumptions that people who come to a meeting like this actually make. Ehrenberg said that loyalty is a function of the number of people you've got. It's statistical. And the 40% churn is something that we should actually expect. And actually you can't, it's like chasing the Holy Grail. Now, you will have your own views, and those views have been very well expressed by some of the speakers on this platform. What I'm going to do is give you a slightly different view. I'm going to take as my theme the great Easter egg disaster of 2013. And first of all, I'm going to talk you through me, just very briefly. StoreCheck, we basically use EPOS data, merged with lots of other things to identify what stores are doing and where they're not doing it. I was the head of Insight for the IPM for 3 years. That's the Institute of Promotional Marketing. In that time, I launched a number of white papers looking at alternatives to price, one of which is called In Place of Price. And it looks at things that you could do. And if you'd like one of those, just leave your card at the back or send a note to the Retail Bulletin. Normally £199 to you, free. You can't, no one else has made you an offer like that. I'm also writing a book with Roddy Mullin, who's here, on the path to purchase. Again, that's come up time and time again today. The fact is, if you can identify your customers and where they are and what they want and when they want it, you're going to get a much better response. Of course, what you've got to make sure is your organization can respond in like mind. So we're looking here now. I work as insight consultant to the Retail Bulletin, and we will be launching some online insights which you will be able to have a look at. If you come in every month, they will change. I'm going to tell you what they are. Einstein, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Woolworth, they had a record Christmas the year they went bankrupt, and no one was supplying them. All they did was they took everything out of the warehouse that they hadn't sold, and they put it on the shelves, and they marked it down, and they sold it record. Fantastic. That was because up to then, their products had all been in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't want to go into too much detail, but their stock control system is based on what did we do last year, whether it sold out or not, and how much stock was in the back, was not of much material interest to them at all. Anyone who ever knew Woolworth's supply system would know that everybody, including Woolworths, knew that it wasn't fit for purpose. They carried on, and we did work in those stores showing that actually the core stores were out of stock of the things that people really wanted to buy the first week of December. Now, there are drivers to customer loyalty. You can ask customers about what they expect to find in a retailer. You're a retailer, aren't you? You sell things. That's the idea. That's why you're in business. And what they really want to do is they want to find the product or service when they get there. And they want an efficient service. People have said, and Google, we're going to be putting online, for those of you who were there then, some of his figures that he had over how much impact his customer service overcame the fact that they were unable, in many cases, to guarantee a result when people actually used the coupon. And it's a very proactive way of doing things to use the second most important thing to overcome deficiencies and the first most important thing. Product or service knowledge, engaged floor staff. You probably know all of those, so I won't bang on about them. We did some research with FastMap where we went through all of the major retailers. I think Boots might be quite pleased with this if they're still in the room. Basically, what we looked at was how they measured up against those core measures. We asked 1,000 people. It's a bit like that television program, isn't it? We asked 1,000 people what they felt, how they felt that they performed. And at that stage, I've got one, I don't know whether we can see it. I had one for Christmas. I've never used it before, so we'll see if it works. Basically, down at the bottom was Focus Wicks, who that year went into liquidation. And you could see that they had the worst results possible. Not far ahead of them, actually, were Tesco stores, but they have a club card. They've been really churning that very, very hard indeed. But this year, I think it's been unable to overcome some of the core deficiencies in their basic offering, and they are 4.2% down in terms of footfall. You go on up and you can see how close. The blue line is performance. The Retail Bulletin went online and looked at the retailer reported performance compared to their size. And the linear line, the pink one is money, how well they were doing, and the blue one is performance. And the two standouts were Boots and Tesco, who both of them have a loyalty card. So you can be satisfied that loyalty cards do work, but you can't actually get over the fact that you've really got to give the customers what they actually expect to find. And the primary reason that people leave a store without buying something is because either they can't find the product or because it isn't there in the first place. 70% of people said they went into for an advertised product or advertised offer into a national FMCG retailer and were unable to find the product that was being advertised. And these are the other reasons. But you can see that you've got to actually make sure that you link together your fantastic marketing with the fact that the supply chain's got to get it in the right place at the end of the day. And now we are back to the great Easter egg disaster. For those of you who were out of the country at the time, none of the major retailers had Easter eggs, except I'm told for One Direction Easter eggs and right across Easter. And this was the Telegraph. And these are sort of comments that came back from Twitter feeds on what was happening in the stores. It's the day before Easter and you have no Easter eggs. Sainsbury, you have disappointed me for the last time. No Easter eggs in Sainsbury's at Easter. Retail genius. Asda Blackburn has sold out of Easter eggs already. It's Maundy Thursday. Is this why we have to buy them in January? It's ironic that supermarkets like Asda start sending Easter eggs within 12 days of Christmas, yet have none left by Good Friday. No Easter eggs or Easter decorations in Leighton Tesco Superstore. I won't use the words they use there. And no Easter eggs left in Waitrose. Outrage. Shit's going down. So people do get very aerated when you don't get it right. And actually, if Sainsbury's are still here, they were, according to people, the worst performers. You can, if you analyse millions, literally millions of Twitter feeds, and we do this with a company called Spectrum Insight, who are here today, and we will be launching a service called Loss Leaders on the website, just looking back at the last month, which retailers have actually had the worst press from their shoppers and why. But you can see the cumulative trend shows that by the time you got through to Easter Saturday, things were looking pretty parlous. And interestingly, neither Tesco nor Asda were particularly surprised that the stock wasn't there. And if you have you been into any Tesco's or Asda's, you will probably understand why that is. They're not surprised, but they were angry. Waitrose, if you look closely at the bottoms at the previous slide, they actually had, they were the best in terms of things going wrong. But actually, many customers were actually disgusted. You see that 5.7%? They were actually disgusted. And that's because, of course, if you're on a pedestal, right, and you get knocked down, people get very unhappy. Now, what Spectrum Insight have done is they've actually put together these tweets which are reporting instances of where things are going right with a store. And 32% of the variation that we see in their monthly sales is explained by the people who are tweeting good things about you. But if you add in the bad things, actually it explains 43%. What I mean by that is that if people say good things about you, about what they've found, then that explains 32%. So delivering what you say you will deliver explains a certain amount of your profitability. If, however, people are saying bad things about you and they then desert, that is also predicted by this. So when things go down, you can predict that as well. So 43% explained by shopper reported emotion. Making them happy isn't enough. You must also prevent them being unhappy. So it's not being able to find what they wanted to buy. It's all about signage and availability. Can they, so if you're on the web, can they find it? And if they're in the store, can they see it and is it there? And just looking at the crises that occur across the course of the year, some of them are very predictable. Things like empty shelves out of stock, fear, sadness, contempt, all different areas, and they tend to link up to things like, well, we've got the Easter eggs up there, there's the FIFA and the Xbox up there, 50 Shades of Grey, clearly important, I haven't read it yet, I hear it's good, fuel crisis, Easter, and then this one, which Tesco certainly don't know about, which is Steak and Blowjob Day. Now, many people don't know about that. And certainly, I've only been allowed to say this, I haven't said this in copy, because the retail bulletin are very nervous about upsetting people like yourselves. But on that day, which is after Valentine's Day, it's payback time, apparently. And a lot of people were saying, doesn't happen to me. Hey, a lot of people are saying, no steaks. Well, hey, half the promise is gone. Anyway, so what you can do is you can actually look and you can find 12 months ago what people are going to be looking for this week. And a lot of it's down to, sort of confectionery, should we say, confectionery at Christmas, confectionery actually, bags of sweets at Halloween. Those are the sorts of things that actually people get upset about because you're running up to an event and you don't, part of what I'm talking about is understanding what the customers need and actually exactly when they need it. And then actually, they're going to need that regardless of what you do in marketing terms. They're going to go into and they're going to want to buy it. But if you haven't told the supply chain, you don't get it. So we've got consumer emotions. They're all on here. I'm not going to bang on about these because it is all there. And it's fairly carefully reasoned. We're working with Cranfield and the University of Kent, Department of Grocery, Marketing and Supply Chain. But what's important is, and these are figures you'll probably know, 63% of UK retailers achieve a higher profit margin from an existing customer, and 90% say it's significantly higher. Would we agree with this? Do we get more from our, if we presume it's the reason why we do loyalty, because we actually want to hang on to these guys and we get more from them. Anyone disagree? Raise your hand if you disagree. We'd all love to hear it. No, fine, good, okay. But 63% of retailers were saying in surveys that they're actually going to be spending a lot more money on getting new people in from the reasonably static UK population. So we're going to have lost leaders, and do look out for it. It is, however, possible, certainly in FMCG and possibly elsewhere, to manage this availability, to predict forward demand. And this is one of the things that really needs to be part of marketing, rather more than it possibly is. In the early days, marketing was all about an overarching concern for the customer in the business. But kind of supplying the goods at the end of the day seems to have fallen out of the responsibilities of the marketing department. In FMCG, 60% of all product is sold at discount, but only 30% of space is flexed. You can yourself understand where the delivery gap can arrive there. And some figures, 70% of people, the IGD say, are not satisfied. So my single thesis is that with a little extra effort, which will cost you nothing and you can make money out of it, you can actually, by looking deep into this big data that you already have, you can identify where you can satisfy people more. And part of the way you have to do that is not by going out asking them questions, but by listening to what they're telling you. We look at EPOS data and to look at the demand and supply. So, for example, for this particular product, a lot of people in London want to buy. Now, the way that actually a retailer tends to allocate stock is nationally about the same, depending on the space. So, in for this particular company, for this particular brand, the same space is supplying twice the demand in this area of London. And the product itself is upmarket. So an upmarket store in Knightsbridge in London with the same amount of space is going to supply 4 times the demand, which is obviously going to be stretched. And small stores are much more important than the average, than you might think, because people think small stores, hey, well, let's get it right in the bigger ones. But actually small stores are really quite important, because for this particular brand, a rank 600 store sells just half of what a rank 1 store sells. And that's because, of course, there's less demand, fewer competitive pressures on the shelves, same number of people going in to buy. So 80% of outlets are key, but they deliver 45% of average sales. Now, it is possible to predict demand when you do something. And one of the things that I spent quite a bit of time doing with the IPM was trying to predict the demand that you would get for other types of activity. And this is going to be in the book. And it is indeed possible to go some way towards doing that. Clearly, if you're going to use coupons, for example, they have a communication benefit. People read a coupon because it is a coupon. They open it because it is a coupon. So with a coupon, you don't just get people walking around the store picking something up. You also get the added benefit of getting your brand message across. And these are the kinds of things that if you are going to start to rebuild confidence, trust, and sales at the same time, you need to start thinking about things which don't just give you an immediate warm feeling, but actually have a custom attached to them, an improved messaging to the customers. And one of the things to understand is that what you have is, for this particular brand, potential for a particular, if you drop the price to around a half, you can actually sell in these stores 35%, 35 times more. But in order to do that, they need 8 times the standard week sales to be there, and they need to be there on day one, because demand doesn't just creep into a store. Day one, everyone wants to buy this special offer. So you've got to understand that the demand, is a sudden thing. You do something, people rush in. But if you just give them the standard stock cover, all they do is go up by 2.5 times. And the gap between the two is taken up by people who went up there, scratched their heads, and went away again. So, what we are just suggesting for bricks and mortar retailers, although I have to tell you, Amazon, for example, were taken to Department of Fair Trading, having an online promotion which started at midnight and finished 3 seconds later. A lot of people went online because it ran out of stock, and a lot of people went online and were clearly very disappointed. I mean, you've got to have a pretty fast trigger finger to take that particular offer. So what you've got to be doing is really not forgetting some of your core values, the core values that your shoppers hold dear. And the thing to remember is, as Tesco are finding out, that if you actually do forget those, you can put in all these loyalty schemes, and you can send out all these coupons, which they do. But the net impact of all of that is that eventually they recognize the core, and not everybody's going to take part in your loyalty scheme. And those people who do not vote with their feet. So we're also launching Vital Statistics, which allows people to see, again through the Retail Bulletin site, what can be done. And this site is going to be in place of price. It's going to be over the next 2 to 3 months. It's going to be a resource that people can go to get information culled from right across the industry on alternative techniques that work perhaps to deliver uplift with better communication, deliver uplift without stressing too much the people down the supply chain, but primarily ways you can go to start to rebuild the trust, the confidence of your customers, that when they actually turn up, they're actually going to get what they expect to get, because you can tie back what you are doing to the place where they're going to go and get it. And that is, and nowadays, is absolutely vital, because the level of loyalty persists in going down. It's like that leaky bucket. You know, there's a hole in my bucket. Dear Liza, well, this is one of those that's rusting away. And you're going to have to spend an enormous amount if somebody doesn't get hard up against some of the other loyalty measures. And you can get to those by listening to what your customers say. There's a seminar coming up, October the 23rd, 2013. That's this October, where we're going to pull together brands and retailers, because the view that we take is that this is an area that brands can really help retailers by focusing very hard on the deliverables for their particular brand and products. And this is an area where, as you've seen, you can predict where you're really going to need their help and where they can expect to both give you a benefit, profit, and them a benefit as well. Thank you very much indeed for your time.